focusing on short-run costs of production. Here we go. A firm which prints greetings cards records its short-run costs. It observes that the average cost per card decreases as more is produced, although the marginal cost is rising. What does it follow? And you have 5 options here. Now, I've highlighted short-run cost just as a little guide. It'll help to you there. So here's the moment where you can press the pause button, have a go at the question, and when you're ready, just press play, and I'll be back with the right answer, and we can go through the explanation together. Have a go. So yeah, I deliberately highlighted short-run costs for a particular reason, and it'll help. I think it'll help get our correct answer. So the firm observes that the average cost per card is falling as they produce more cards, but the marginal cost of each extra card is rising. What does it follow? And the correct answer to this question is E. Marginal costs are below average costs. Low marginal is dragging down the average, even if the marginal is actually going up. So let's have a think about why that is the case. Well, it's to do with the usual curvature, if you like, of the average and the marginal cost curve, which I've reproduced for you in this diagram. I've taken that text out again from the question. Average cost falling, whilst marginal cost of each card is increasing. Now, can you see on the diagram at position a situation where the average cost is falling, the unit cost of the cards, even though marginal cost is increasing? It's going to be to the right of the point of the minimum point of the marginal cost curve. Hopefully you can see that this is an area, for example, where marginal cost is going up, but the average cost is still falling, up to the point, of course, where marginal cost cuts average cost, the intersection at the minimum point of the average cost curve. So average cost will fall when marginal cost is less than average cost. Average cost will rise when marginal cost is greater than average cost. And the unit cost, the average cost, is at a minimum when it's intersected by the marginal cost curve. Just double check our answer by looking at the other options, A, B, C and D. Well, A says there are economies of scale, falling average cost, but economies of scale or increasing returns, they refer only to the long run, not the short run. Option B, the law of diminishing returns has not yet set in. Well, if that's the case, the marginal cost of production of each extra card will be falling, not rising as the question suggests. The fixed costs are zero. Well, it's unlikely to be right, because one of the reasons why average cost will keep declining, even though marginal costs are on the increase, is because of a fall in the average fixed cost of production. A card company might have some overhead costs. The more cards they produce, the fixed cost per unit comes down. That helps to explain why average cost per card is still decreasing as more are produced. And option D, marginal costs rise whenever average costs fall. No, as we've seen on the previous diagram, both marginal cost and average cost can rise. That will be at any output beyond the point where marginal cost has intersected with the average cost curve. So that's why the correct answer to that question was E. I hope you got it right. A nice little test of your understanding of short-run cost curves. Okay, thank you.
Costs are part of every production process, and therefore every firm has to take them into account. To better explain and illustrate cost analysis in the short run, we will simultaneously use 2 different graphs. The upper graph represents output produced in the horizontal axis and cost of the output produced in the vertical axis. In this graph, we'll draw the fixed cost curve, the variable cost curve, and the total cost curve. The lower graph still measures output produced in the horizontal axis, and average and marginal cost is measured in the vertical axis. When output increases, the average fixed cost will decrease, since dividing a fixed cost into a greater number of output units makes it smaller. We now draw in the lower graph the marginal cost curve, which is drawn by analyzing the slope of the total cost curve in the upper graph. The point where the marginal cost is lowest matches the point where the slope of the total cost curve is equal to 0. The average variable cost curve measures the average cost per unit of output produced. Its minimum point matches the point where the marginal cost curve crosses the average variable cost curve. We can use the same method in order to draw the average total cost, which is derived from the total cost curve. Its minimum point matches the point where the marginal cost curve crosses the average total cost curve. We label point E as the point where production is more efficient, and point E prime as the point where production starts making sense to the firm from an economic point of view. Let's see why. Phase 1 corresponds to the part of the graph where average variable cost is still decreasing. During this phase, until the marginal cost is equal to average variable cost, the firm will be incurring in great losses, equal to both its variable and fixed costs. Therefore, the firm won't be producing at all. Phase 2 corresponds to the phase at which variable costs are not yet high enough, and where marginal cost is below average total cost. The yellow line that stretches through this part of the marginal cost determines a level of output at which the firm will still be incurring in losses, but corresponding only to fixed costs. Here the firm may produce, since the more they produce, the closer they get to their break-even point. Lastly, in Phase 3, the firm is now able to cover both its fixed and variable costs. The last part of the marginal cost curve, highlighted in green, corresponds to a production level that guarantees some profit, as long as the market structure allows it. This analysis of cost helps us understand how firms make decisions about their production process, depending on their average and marginal costs. However, we must keep in mind that cost analysis may vary from the short run to the long run.